Okay, video 3, unless I decide to split the first one into 2 for some reason. This one's going to be concerning homeostasis and feedback loops. Should be a pretty quick one. So, starting off, let's talk about what is homeostasis. It is the ability of an organism to maintain a stable internal environment no matter what is happening external. So, keeping your internal environment safe and stable no matter what is happening to it from external conditions. So it's this interplay, it's this balance, delicate balance, dynamic balance. It's always in motion. It never stops. It's always trying to fix something. And it's just this interplay between outside factors that are going to change your internal environment and then the internal mechanisms that are going to try to oppose it. So, put simply, temperature goes up outside. What does the cell or your body do to keep your temperature from going up on the inside? So, 2 main types of feedback mechanisms. The first we are going to talk about is a negative feedback mechanism. These are more common in homeostasis, and they help out by essentially fighting the changing condition, trying to return it back to where its target point was. So, a negative feedback loop is opposing the stimulus. For a non-biology example, it's a thermostat. The room temperature goes down. I drift from I'm reading this diagram backwards. Stimulus is the room is too cold. The thermostat senses that the room is too cold. And so the response is to turn on the heater. And so the room temperature increases. But then maybe you overshoot it. The heater's on for slightly too long, and now the thermostat reads that it's too hot, so it turns the heater off, the temperature decreases, and it repeats. Maybe it goes a little too low now, and you can see it's just going to kind of keep oscillating around its set point, increasing, decreasing. It'll never be perfectly and permanently at its set point. It's always going to be just a bit above or just a bit below, and always tweaking to get to that point. So, how we do it, dang it, it's cut off. Thermoregulation, this is our body's internal thermostat. We use, again, negative feedback loops. So, what happens? Diagrams like these are confusing, but it's important to understand a bit of how to go about reading them. So, or laser pointer. We need to find our stimulus. So, our stimulus, in this case, there should be 2. But stimulus is decreased body temperature. It's cold outside. So the body's colder than this set point. You have a region in your brain that essentially is sensing temperature, and it notices that the temperature is too low. So what it does is it tells your blood vessels to constrict, to take blood from your capillaries, and basically keeping it at the most important stuff, the big stuff. It also will tell our muscles to activate sometimes when we need to generate heat, and we'll start to shiver. In 1 second, let me pause. Okay. So, sorry about that. Shivering begins. Both of those would lead to your body temperature going up, and our hypothalamus feels warm, and so it shuts off. But again, maybe it overshoots. Who knows? We get a stimulus of increased body temperature. It's too high. And so what's going to happen? Our blood is going to be warmer than the set point. And so our brain is going to detect that. And it's going to tell our cells to kind of do the opposite. It's going to tell our blood vessels to expand. Our capillaries get flushed with warm blood. And our heat begins to radiate from the skin surface. So we just start to give off more heat. Additionally, we can activate our sweat glands, which we perspire, vaporize, which also helps to cool the body down, which again returns it to its set point temperature. So, negative feedback loop, no matter what the temperature does, if it's too high or too low, our brain triggers these pathways to return it back to a normal temperature. Another example is in transpiration. So, transpiration, if you don't remember, is the process of trees pulling water up from their roots all the way up to their leaves, using evaporation and hydrogen bonding to do that. And this also has a negative feedback loop to prevent dehydration. So there's these special cells called guard cells, and they open and close the stomata. That is where our leaves will lose a lot of their water from. So if transpiration is too fast, we're losing too much water, they'll close up. If water is scarce, then we have there's a hormone in plants that causes the guard cells to shrink and the stomata to close, and it causes it to save up on water. If you are getting too little transpiration, open back up. So again, same idea, it's opposing whatever the stimulus is. Positive feedback loops are going to be a bit different. They are going to be pushing an organism further out of homeostasis. So these are not to maintain homeostasis. This is to kind of break through homeostasis, and it's usually for some sort of major function. We'll talk about a few. But they are amplifying responses. So they're not fighting the stimulus, they are amplifying the stimulus. Your stimulus is going to initiate your response that's going to move you from your set point, but that's going to increase the stimulus, which is going to increase the response, which is going to further increase your stimulus over and over. You're going to get this exponential growth. So why would we ever need this? Human example, childbirth. During childbirth, the pressure of the baby pushing on the cervix tells our pituitary gland to secrete a hormone, oxytocin. Oxytocin stimulates the uterus to contract, which when the uterus contracts, the baby pushes against the cervix with more pressure, which again causes the pituitary gland to secrete more oxytocin, causing increased contractions. We need to do this because this is a pretty major extreme event. It is not a homeostasis event to have a child. You're trying to ultimately cause a major change and cause the baby to be born. And so the only thing that shuts off this pathway is the relief of the pressure on the cervix when the baby is actually pushed out and born. So this positive feedback loop is why childbirth can even be possible, because it's such an extreme event. So it needs an extreme stimulus. Another example that's a little less extreme is ripening of fruit. So plants release hormone into the air called ethylene. And when ethylene binds to receptors on fruit, it tells them that they need to ripen up. So when one apple ripens, it releases its ethylene gas into the air and tells all the other fruit around it to ripen. And the idea is that they will all be ripe and ready to eat around the same time, so that they can be spread out well. But this, you may also know, there's a phrase like one rotten apple spoils the whole bunch. When they start to rot, if you have an apple in a big bag of apples and there's one rotten one in there, it will speed up the process of all the other ones ripening and breaking down and rotting. So, two main examples. Those are really the only ones that I know of and the only ones that they talk about. That is it for this video. That is it for signal transduction. The rest of this unit is going to be dealing with the cell cycle, mitosis, and a little bit of cancer. It's interesting stuff. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. See you later. Bye.